G'day, welcome back to Twistie On Bass, where I'm giving you real life insight for playing and recording your bass guitar. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and for more bass techniques, iconic rock covers and real life use of your bass gear, come back. Today we're going to look at using a pitch shifter in our Helix to transform the way we practice and jam to recorded music like Spotify playlists and YouTube, etc. Let's check it out. The key of a song and the pitch that the instruments are tuned to varies from artist to artist and song to song. Choosing the key of a song is often linked to three variables a musician or a songwriter needs to contend with. When you're rehearsing or practicing, you then have to adjust your bass to that of the recorded music. If you're tuned to standard and they're playing in an E flat, then you need to retune to E flat. If they're playing in C and you want to play it in D, then you need to adjust where you're playing it or tune differently. This often causes delays or takes your mind off what you're doing or interrupts, or it's just a pain in the bum. Choosing the key of the song is often linked to three variables a musician or songwriter needs to contend with. There's the harmonic compatibility. Choosing the key of a song sets the mood or the tone. If you want a happy, uplifting piece, you favor major keys, while minor keys are often chosen for melancholic or serious tones. Your vocal range. The specific key you choose can either work within your singer's vocal range or work against it. To make a song as impactful as possible, a key that complements the voice and doesn't push it too hard is preferred. And then you have the instrumentation. Each instrument you play has keys that are easier or more difficult to play in. Therefore, if you want your performance to be smooth and fluid, choosing a key that aligns with the strengths and limitations of your instrument, in our case the bass guitar, then struggling against a pattern that is not normal feeling. The pitch or the tuning of your bass is often linked to the vocal range, in which the mood and tone is set for the song, but the vocal range is being stretched. It's quite common to tune flat, so instead of tuning E, A, D, G, you tune down half a step or a semitone and tune to E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, to allow your singer to sing in the same key and the same tone, but without straining their voice. While practicing bass by playing along to YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music, often the tuning of the song is different to how we have our bass set up, or the song is played in a different key to what we want to play in. Often guitar players use capos to go over their frets to change the key that they're playing in. I hate capos. So I change the positioning of what I'm playing in. But sometimes that doesn't work for you because you want to be able to play in the position that you want to be able to play in live. So what's the value of a pitch shifter? Part of practicing your bass is about getting muscle memory of patterns or pieces that allow you to not have to think about it when you're playing and just get into the song or the groove. This is really hard to do if your band plays a song in a different key or a different tuning to that of the artist that you're trying to play along with when you're practicing. We can stop between songs to retune, we can swap out basses, got a few there. I can have one set for different keys. Or we can transpose the song. But this last one, while good for our theory and overall musicianship and is a skill we should have, doesn't help with the muscle memory part of our practicing purposes. It makes you able to transpose quicker by practicing that, but if you're looking for muscle memory to be able to replay a song without having to think too hard about it, then playing in the position that you want to play live while you're rehearsing is really helpful in my opinion. Incorporating a pitch shifter in your signal path, especially in your practice routine and practice setup, has a number of advantages. Gone are those days of spending time retuning your bass for each song, interrupting the flow of your jam. With a pitch shifter, you can seamlessly switch up your sound in seconds, and I'll show you shortly how SnapShots within the Helix make this really cool. The second thing is you can learn to play how you want to play. Playing your bass along to Spotify or YouTube with the fingering and hand positions that you use when you play live makes learning and rehearsing sets simpler. For example, if a song is played in E, but your singer wants it played in D, then rather than having to transpose the fingering while practicing at home and then transpose it again back when you're playing live, I can use a pitch shifter to drop the tuning of the bass down 2 steps or a tone and play the song in D, but what I'm hearing will be in E as I play along to the recording. It's also cost efficient. Instead of investing in a range of different instruments with a different tone based on the tuning, the pitch shifter gives me the ability to alter the sound of my single bass guitar to mimic multiple bass guitars. This is really cost efficient for those wanting to diversify your sound and your portfolio without having to cough up for additional instruments. Let's have a look at how that looks within our Helix. So if we look over here at the HX Edit, let's start with a very clean patch that I've created before. I've just got a standard SVT4 Pro and its associated cabs, so SVT4 Pro, Ampeg 4x10. I have done no changes to these whatsoever. These are straight out of the default settings. So if I play this as it stands, I'm tuned to E flat. So E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat. And this is what it will sound like. I've added a compressor at the end just to clean up some of the tails, which I like to do. And that's it. Again, the compressor is set to as it came out of the standard default. Now there's 3 different types of effects box I can use to change the pitch of the bass. The first is the pitch whammy, which is located in the pitch synth library. So it's on here. And the second is the poly capo, and the third then is the poly whammy. Poly being polyphonic, which is used when you have multiple strings that you want to tune at the same time. So banjos, guitars, ukuleles. As the bass is predominantly a single note instrument, where even when we play chords, they tend to be arpeggiated. So we normally play. Mostly. The need for a poly effect is not as necessary as it is for guitar players, because it's only trying to tune one string at a time, not all 4 or all 6 or all 12. The choice of effects also depends on the amount of DSP or memory you've got available in your HX after you've set up the rest of your bass tone. As a very simple one like this, lots of DSP, I can choose anything that I like. But on my HX Stomp, I only have one block available and very little DSP available. So the poly capo is probably not going to help me. So let's look at this pitch whammy. In my experience, playing bass with the predominant use of wanting to reduce the number of tuning stops or bass changes while I'm jamming to Spotify against my rehearsal set list, I find the use of a single pitch whammy block at the beginning of the patch works very well. It doesn't take up much DSP as compared to some of the other ones we'll look at, and it's also very simple to configure. So adding the pitch whammy to the channel, I then match the heel pitch and the toe pitch to be that of the settings I need. So remember, this is designed to be a whammy pedal type effect, whereas I go to the toe, I'll have one tuning and the heel will be another one, and I'll blend between the two. Because I want to use it for consistent pitch throughout the playing, then I'm going to want the heel pitch and the toe pitch to be exactly the same. Because I'm not using it as a pedal, the positioning doesn't matter either. So it can be, the default's 50%, but you can set it to 1 or 100, it doesn't make a difference because I'm not adjusting the foot. The mix, I leave it at 100 because I want it to be 100% tuned as opposed to partly tuned and partly not tuned. That would be interesting. And the level, I normally leave at parity at 0, but again, you can change that based on your volume for your overall gain structure of your patch. Now, because I'm tuned to E flat, or E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, I'm going to want to use this to be able to go plus one semitone or one step up to go up to an E as the most common use that I have. So I'm either going to go from standard tuning to -1 or down one step, or I'm going to go from E flat up. So in order to do that, all I'm going to do is set as I've done here, the heel pitch is set to +1 and the toe pitch is set to +1. Now as I play along in E flat, because this pitch is now on, you should hear it in E. So first of all, I'm going to turn it off, play that scale in E flat. Now when I turn it on, you should hear it in tune to E. Now it's important to note the bass itself is still tuned to E flat. So if you're not playing with headphones on or sufficient volume to play over the sound of the fretboard, then you'll hear some very interesting sounds, especially if you change the pitch quite drastically. So if you're looking at moving, 3 semitones or 3 steps either way, from beyond that, there's dragons, man. Now, as I use this for rehearsing, and I'm usually got headphones on when I'm rehearsing, or the studio monitors are coming through fairly loud, it doesn't bother me, but at low volumes, it will have an impact to you. Live, the rest of the stage volume drowns out my fretboard, so I can't hear it at that point. So again, live, you don't hear the difference. Just be aware, at low volumes, it will sound really weird. Now, this method works really well on the Helix LT, on the floor, and as it's a fairly simple effect, it also works well on the HX Stomp if you've got an available block to be able to use for it. One of the downsides of using the pitch whammy though is that any artifacts you bring into the block will also try to get pitch shifted. So if you've got string noise, it wants to try and pitch bend the string noise as well. So to address this, what I like to do is put a noise gate at the beginning of the block. Now this noise gate is default settings. I haven't changed anything. Again, you can tune that to get rid of the artifacts that you're hearing when you play, as you probably should be doing in your rig anyway. But the more effects you have, the less accurate you'll hear the change and you'll think it's not working. So again, the noise gate gets rid of the artifacts and makes it more clear. Now you can use the input gate on the channel, which should do exactly the same thing. I've had a little bit mixed response with that. I like to be able to turn the gate on and off when I'm doing the pitch, so I use it this way, but there's no reason you can't use that instead of wasting a block. On my HX Stomp in my live rig, I don't have the space to put it, so I do use the input gate on my HX Stomp. Let me know in the comments below which works better for you. So if I now play that, pitch shift is turned on. I've got that on. I'll play it without first. Now I'll put the noise gate on. So what about the case where we're not just changing between E and E flat tuning, but we also want to be able to change keys to match how we play the song live? This is where Helix SnapShots really outperform and make this a really useful function. So there's 3 pitch settings that I predominantly move between and a couple of rarely used ones. The first one we already covered is where I have my bass tuned to E flat, but the song I'm playing to requires me to be in E or tuned to E, standard. So we've just covered that where I'm using a pitch shift to go from up one semitone or one step to get into that pitch. So I've created a snapshot called pitch +1, where if I look at the pitch, it's set to go up one step. Now the second one that I use is that I have my bass tuned to standard and the song I'm playing to is tuned down. So that would be going to -1 instead of +1. So I've created a, you've guessed it, snapshot that goes to -1 instead. So now that I'm in E flat, it's gone down again. And you can put in the comments below what that would be. I'm not telling you. The third one that I find that I use most commonly is to go up 2 semitones or 2 steps on the fretboard. So I've got one that says pitch +2. So again, all I've done is I've changed the pitch to be +2 and both the heel and tone. This allows me to basically change a key for what we play live, but play along to the recorded version. +2 I use often when we're moving from things like it's played in D and I want to play it in E, or it's played in C and I want to play it in D. So this again allows me to play where I want to play, where we're going to be playing it live, but hear it and play along to the versions on the radio. Now +2 seems to be quite common for where I'm doing it based on the keys we play live. You might find that it's +3 or -2. Again, change this to be what works for you and have as many as you like. There is an extreme version that I use when I want to practice to Mr. Biggs to Be With You, where I need to set the pitch to -5 in order to play with the key that the singer can actually sing in. Eric Martin's very, very high. Because these are quite common for me to play between these three, I've created snapshots for them. What I've then done is I've created foot switches to control those snapshots. So under Window, Command Center, if I look at the first snapshot, I've got foot switch 9 calling snapshot 2, which is going to be going from my standard of +1 to the +2, or to snapshot 3, which then takes me to the +2 option. If I change to the second snapshot, this then takes me back to +1 or to +2, and then if I'm looking at pitch 3, it takes me again back to my starting snapshot 1, which is at +1, or back to +2, or to -1. So that's how I set to go between the snapshots, and I have that common across all of my settings. For controlling the pitch itself, I have that to be foot switch 8. So in each of my snapshots, foot switch 8 on my Helix LT always turns on and off the pitch shifter, and in patch 1 I normally have it defaulted to off, so I can then turn it on if I want to go up. And then I have on the other ones, I have it defaulted, so as I change to the next snapshot, it's already turned on because I know I'm going to want it on, which is why I went to that snapshot. So that's how I have mine set up. For my live rig, because I've only got the limited number of snapshots and foot switches, I actually have a copy of my main patch saved with the pitch shift on to +1, and that allows me to swap between the two patches rather than turning on and off the detune. So I've got a detune turned on in one, and in the other one I think I've got a octave pedal, so I swap the octave for the pitch shift. I'm not going to have both at the same time in my setting. So in one I've got the octave, and the other one I have the pitch shift. What are the other options I've got? So alternative to the pitch whammy, many guitarists go with the poly capo as a replacement for using an actual capos. You know, they put those funky things on the things and allows them to do all sorts of weird stuff. Personally, I hate using them and I try to avoid them at all costs. So this is a great alternative as a guitarist that doesn't want to have to carry the capo. The poly capo, so I'm going to choose the poly capo patch that I've already pre-set up. So again, amp and compressor are exactly the same. All I've done now is I've added a poly capo function. It's as easy to configure as the pitch whammy, but it does take a significant amount of DSP from the Helix. So depending on what else you've got running in your patch, this may not work for you or be very productive. In fact, you may not even be able to add it to your patch. If you are able to use it, set it up similarly to the pitch whammy where the interval represents the number of steps or semitones. So again, the interval now is I want to go from flat to standard, so I'm going to go up one step or one semitone. Now, unlike the pitch whammy, the capo actually has a tracking stability option. So I use it for maximum stability, so that'll get the most clarity out of it, but that will also use the most DSP. So you may want to play with that a little bit as well. The auto EQ allows it, as you change pitch, sometimes you also change tone. And so the audio EQ allows you to keep the tone in when you're changing. Again, I haven't noticed on the bass, where I'm largely playing single notes, that this is a bigger pact. But I believe from other forums and other feedback from guitarists that when you're effectively capoing for chords, it can become an issue. Similarly, mix and level, I leave 100% wet and stay the same. So if I now turn this off, I'll play that through again. Now with the poly capo on, it should sound very similar, if not the same, to what we had before. As I did with the pitch whammy, you can also attach snapshots. Again, I've done my +1, my -1, my +2, my -5, whichever ones you want to use. I've set the foot switch controls up to be identical. So foot switch 8 turns on the shift, which 9 and 10 change between those snapshots. The third approach we've got, and I'm going to change that now, is the polyphonic whammy or the poly whammy. So this is really the same as the pitch whammy. So again, it's got a heel position, it's got a foot switch position, it's got a heel shift and a toe shift. So again, same as the simple whammy, we're going to set those to be the same as what we want to target, in my case, +1. But unlike the pitch whammy, this poly whammy has the stability tracking and the auto EQing functionality, again, alleviating the need for the noise gate at the beginning, getting you a better outcome, but also using a significant amount more DSP than you do with a simple pitch whammy. So let's try this one. Now with that poly whammy on, the same as I did with the other two, I've got this set for my +1, my -1 and my +2 as snapshots. The foot switches are set the same, so I can go between those. It'd be great to hear in your feedback which one you thought worked better, which one had less artifacts, and which way you use it. Thanks again for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. I find the use of pitch whammy within the Helix as an absolute lifesaver and critical to my practice routine. By being able to play along to the recorded track in the fretboard shapes and patterns that I play live without having to interrupt myself by changing basses or tuning between songs, I can get the best out of my practice sessions in the most efficient time. I found using the pitch whammy or poly capo in the Helix at the beginning of the patch, I get the ability to build muscle memory on the songs and patterns I'm playing that I can then take directly into my live playing. For simplicity, the poly capo really is amazing, and as we heard, there's not much difference between using the pitch wham and the capo, but it really does suck up, as much as 50% of your DSP in your Helix, which limits what else you can have in your patch, and it pretty well makes it unusable on the HX Stomp. For consistency across my live rig, which is a HX Stomp, and my recording home studio use, which is my LT, I've standardized on the pitch whammy option, and I couldn't be more happy with that. Hopefully this video will help you in your approach to practice, and if you found it helpful, please give me a thumbs up and share it with your fellow bass players and other musicians. Not sure it's useful for drummers, but share it with drummers as well. Subscribe to the channel for some more real life tips and tricks, and check out some of the covers that I'm playing along to from the perspective of a bass player. If you've got questions or there's something specific you'd like me to cover in the future video, please do drop a comment below. I love reading them, and keep on playing, and we'll see you in the next one. See ya.